So I should have better eye contact.
All right, it's recording here. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint. So let's see here. All right. Everybody see that? Good?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So I guess I really, sometimes I just decide to just have a feel for things, and I just see trends. I've been doing this for 26 years. And one of the trends I see that is a lot of people do is that they typically, with the holidays, they just kind of throw in the towel and just accept that they're going to gain weight. They just kind of, they give up. They give up before the fights even started. And it just doesn't have to be that way. So I'm a big believer in, I think, like probably like a lot of you, like this, my year, I had some goals at the end of the year and didn't get everything accomplished I wanted to, had some setbacks, but it's always good to finish the year on a high note versus I think a lot of people just say, basically say, screw it, I'm just going to eat during the holidays and I'll just deal with it after the fact, only to be that much farther behind the eight ball. Not only having like gain weight, but also mentally they're just not a good place versus learning to like do this and incorporate into your life so you can still enjoy the holidays, but make progress during the during the holidays too as well, and finish this strong. And I think it's just as much about the mental as it is the physical. And this is really 78% of results where people have an emotional attachment and they have like stuff to that keeps them kind of bound. They have a nutrition plan in front of them and they know what to do, but for some of them they're not doing it. So this is a big battle of the mind, and that's kind of where I started. When I look at my 4 strategies tonight, this is probably something like Linda said, how's it changed? One big shift we've made is the mindset, the battle of the mindset. So if we go into the next slide here, so a lot of people don't start with an all-in mindset, meaning that you're really committed to do this. It's not like you're not going to have off days, or you're not going to have off days, or you're going to, and maybe a day where you just kind of want to give up. But an all-in mindset means you're going to keep going. You're going to, even if you fall down, you're going to keep going. It doesn't mean you're going to be perfect every single day. And I think the way you keep doing that, the number one reason is to identify your why. And I share this story, and some of you guys, Tracy's heard this story, and she actually saw this story. But like I think about my dad, who, when he was 80 years old, he had a back. All of a sudden, he started losing feeling in his legs. My mom was in assisted living at the time, so he had a walker for hers, and he was trying to use the walker to get around. And my dad's a big hunter, and he loves to hunt. It's like his passion, And when he had this thing in his back, we took us 3 MRIs to find out that he had a tumor in the middle of his back. And when we found out what it was good to know what it was. It was benign. It wasn't cancerous, which is good. But he had to have surgery right in the fall, right in the middle of hunting season, which is it's like his favorite time of year. And so he had the surgery, and he got the feeling back in his legs, but he's really weak. And if you grew up in our family, I mean, it's a big Minnesota thing too. If you're from Minnesota, is you realize that deer hunting opener is a big deal. And he's been doing a deer camp for, I want to say 60 years, probably at least. And for the first time in like 60 years, he could not go deer hunting. He went up there, but he couldn't. I know it killed him to watch everybody go into the woods. And so he realized, like, if I don't do something to get my health in order, I'm going to probably be done hunting. And if that happens, I'm probably going to have to leave my house, because he lives in a nice acreage lot out in the country, and it takes some maintenance. So he has to be physical to me. And he's not a type of guy that will do well in a single level condo or assisted living. So he made a decision that this is a life or death decision basically for me. Either I do something about this, or I'm basically going to probably be done, because if he can't hunt and do the things he wants, my dad literally is done. He's a people person. He likes to be out. He likes to be active. So he started working with me back. This was almost 4 years ago. And he knew that if, the thing that he had realized is that he couldn't do this on his own. And he had kind of pushed it off for years, and would always make jokes that he was the before picture and I was the after, but he knew at this point he couldn't push it off. So he actually had to, for once in his life, listen to me, where he's always trying to get me to listen to him. But it was a process, and he got through the process because his goal was, And his goal was, is we, in the spring, we do a big turkey hunting trip. And that's when we go out to South Dakota and we hike around the Black Hills. And he knew if he wasn't better by then, he wouldn't be able to do that one either. That's his other big thing every year that he gets all fired up about. So I'm pleased to say my dad, he buckled down and he did it, but the reason he did is because he had a strong why, because he was about to lose a part of his life that really filled him up. And so he went from walking with the walker in October of that year to in April, going into the Black Hills. And when he shot his first turkey, he actually had to climb under a barbed wire fence at 80 years old, when he was just like 6 months ago or 5 months ago or whatever. He was walking around with the walker and didn't know if he was going to have to sell his house and move into like an assisted living. So it's pretty amazing. And people say, well, how does that happen? And it's like, yeah, the training was, we know what we're doing, but it would have been a lot easier just to give up and just give in. And that, because he didn't, is because he had a strong why. And that's something you have to identify. Something that, why do you want to do it? Because the why is what always keeps you going, especially now the days are getting darker and shorter. You got a rainy day today. I could count on multiple clients came in and said it felt like a good day to take a nap. Not very motivating to come into the gym, but the why do you do it? Because the ones that make it in there and don't miss are the ones that have a strong why. And the ones that stick to their eating most of the time and stay consistent, they stick to their why, because they know what's driving them. And that kind of feeds me into number 2, is it comes down to discipline versus emotions. Too often people let emotions run their lives. They just realize that, it's kind of whichever the wind's blowing. And if we let our emotions run our lives, we're never going to get anywhere, because our emotions change on a day-to-day basis. And this was really prevalent. I heard a bunch of a pastor that I really like to listen to was interviewing a bunch of athletes, and he was talking about training with athletes. And he's like, how many hours a week do you train? And these are all NCAA athletes. And these athletes all trained hours and hours a week. And he asked them the question, he said, do you always feel like training? Do you always like to train? And they said, no, I don't always feel like it. Why do you do it? To win the prize. All right. To win the medal, to be my best. And that is a discipline mindset versus emotions, because your emotions will tell you no. And I mean, I have those voices too. Everyone thinks personal trainers always wake up and we're motivated to go to the gym. Not always, and so we have to really sit back on our discipline, knowing there's a lot of things we do that maybe we don't always feel like doing, but we're always glad when we did them at the end. I think about a lot of things in my life. I think about my spiritual time in the morning. Sometimes I feel like just checking my phone and watching stupid social media stuff, but I do that discipline and it always pays off. Same with your emotion, or with your exercise and with your eating. Because when you start to win battles with this, you start to build momentum. And the way you do that is you got to set yourself up. A lot of people set themselves up for failure. They have reasons they justify, keeping certain foods in the house. And I'm going to skip ahead to number 4, but one of the things I tell people is make bad habits hard. If there's a food that's your kryptonite, like for me, it's cake. I know, like, if cake's in the house, I'm probably going to eat it. So why make it easy for me to cheat or fall apart? I mean, there's a lot of things we have here that my wife and my kids really like that I could care less. I'm not a Halloween candy guy. I'm not even those things, but for whatever reason, cake is a big temptation. So I do not, if somebody tries to hand me cake after a wedding or something, I will not bring it home. And a lot of people will say, well, my kids need it in the house and my husband likes whatever, but the best thing to do is, if you can get those things, make them hard. And if you can't get them out of the house, put them somewhere where they're not easily accessible, and making good habits easy. And one of the best ways to do this is have good choices on hand. And we get into that. We talk about shopping and having good foods on hand. And if you have those good choices that are easy to get to and the bad ones that are hard to get to, you're going to be more successful. And then there's also the creating a realistic action plan. The guy who kind of mentored me in my faith walk, who leads our men's group on Thursday, talked about, I love this term, maximal sustainable effort. Everybody's going to have a different level of what that is, because everybody's schedules are different and everybody's commitments are different. But it's like a running race. You have to be realistic. Like, not everybody can run a 6-minute mile. Not everybody, some people are better than a 9-minute mile. So what's the pace you can run this thing? And what are the actions you can take for you, and not comparing yourself because your neighbor, so-and-so down the street is doing this, so I need to do it. Well, so-and-so only works 20 hours a week and you have a full-time job and you have 3 kids and they have no kids. So you have to be realistic with yourself. What's your maximal sustainable effort? And you're running your own race. I know the first time, I've never run a marathon, but I've run the Twin Cities 10 mile. It was like, I'm not worried about what the other people do. I'm going to run my own race. And anybody who's done a marathon, Tracy can probably speak to this, is you probably didn't care too much about finishing, it was more about your personal race, right? Speaking to that, Tracy?
Yeah, I can agree. Yep. And just making sure I did better than I did the last time, or getting my time different than it was, you know, the 10 mile the year before or the month before or whatever. So it's a race against myself.
And I would also say this too, is start to watch how you talk. This was a really good thing I got from one of our church groups. It was a powerful versus powerless speech. We did a whole thing on how you speak, and it was really powerful because we got to watch how we speak sometimes. Like a lot of people use words like I'll try, I hope, well, maybe. And that just sounds, you're already kind of given into defeat versus I will, I can. You know, I think you start to speak like that, and you know, Bible says life and death are in the power of the tongue. I believe that, you know, the way people speak about themselves, it just there's no confidence there, but you want to speak with confidence and know that you can, because I've seen people do amazing things in my 26 years. And I know everybody here on this webinar tonight can do amazing things. It's just, they have to believe that themselves. So start to pay attention how you speak and what you're speaking out, you know, because when you say stuff like say you're having a party and somebody tells you they're getting, well, I'll try to make it. What are they really saying? They're probably not going to make it, right? They're already kind of setting themselves to say, they're already kind of throwing themselves out. I'll try to get my workout in. So when clients say that to me, I always bust them on it and say, no, that is not powerful speech. That's powerless speech. You have the power. You get to control your schedule. You can do this. Not, oh, I hope I can do this. You know, start to look at how you talk and watch how you talk, because it makes a big difference. This is something I really have started to coach clients on, because I've caught myself doing it too. And when my kids say it, I call that, I say that even when they do prayers, when we do prayers, we don't speak like this. All right. We're supposed to speak with power. And so start talking about yourself with power versus powerless, you know, because that you will create a self-fulfilling prophecy in any direction, basically. So you have to have that all in mindset. You have to get your mind right if you're going to do something like this. This can't be like, I'm going to do another diet. Hopefully, I hope this will work. I mean, I have clients that jump on Nutrisystem, MetaFast, and even when they know I don't like it, the same thing always happens. They lose weight, they get excited, but they don't do any of the process. They don't build any good habits. And as soon as they run out of it, they get sick of the food or get sick of the system, they go right back to doing what they're doing before, and they gain the weight back. So the idea is to respect the process, enjoy the journey. It's going to be hard. There's going to be setbacks, like I said, but it's always like anything, fitness, nutrition, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or realize that there's going to be some steps back along the way, and just be okay with that, you know, and not let that be a deterrent to say, okay, I had a bad day, or maybe this week wasn't my best, but I'm not giving up. All right. That's the all-in mindset. I'm going to finish this race no matter what. So that's the first thing that needs to happen with nutrition, because we can talk about all the stuff you need to do and things to pay attention to, but if this part is not right, it's not even worth it to move forward. So number 2 is really to get serious about nutrition. And I put serious in caps, all caps here, because a lot of people think they're serious and they're really not. You know, we had a client, Tracy and I can tell, we had a client in yesterday who said they're really serious about losing their belly, but yet they forgot their goal sheet. And I kind of called them out on it. I said, hey, wait a minute. If you're really serious, why didn't you go fill out your goal sheet? Why did you leave it here? You know, like, serious is like, I'm going to do what it takes and I'm going to be coachable. And what I tell people is you have to track. A lot of people say, I want to see really big results, but I don't want to track. And I'm a big believer in you have to track what you want to improve. Now, MyFitnessPal, that's the app you see up here right now, is not a perfect app. It's not like always rock solid, but it is a great way to start to pay attention to what you're doing. And if you're being coached, it's a great way for people to see what you're doing and give you feedback. Too often the excuse is if people do try to write it in a notebook or something, they forget the notebook. It's kind of like a checkbook. Nobody carries it around anymore. But plus FitnessPal spits out numbers, and I like the FitnessPal app. You don't need to go get the premium version, the free version. I'm going to actually show you guys how I do this. I'll actually demonstrate what I do on this, how I use this app, because a lot of people use it on their phone. I'm a big believer in using it on your computer. Number 2 is do not spike your blood sugar. We're going to talk about that in the next slide, but that's a big one, because a lot of people because they're not tracking or starting to forget about certain things they're eating throughout the day, that are spiking their blood sugar, that are keeping them maybe not gaining weight, but not losing it either, kind of keeping them in a proverbial neutral. This also, when you track, you're going to keep you conscious daily of what you're doing. When you write things down or you enter things, you're paying attention to that. And, you know, so when you allow for consistency, it looks like I got cut off there. My PowerPoint going crazy, but basically, so we can act, you can make subjective decisions or objective decisions versus subjective ones. When you have numbers in front of you that are consistent, you can make good decisions with what you're doing instead of emotional ones, which a lot of times people do is they don't have any numbers in front of them. So they do something crazy. They say, well, I'm not losing weight, so now I'm going to intermittent fast 7 days a week, or I'm going to go low carb. They're going to do some kind of knee-jerk reaction, when a lot of times, if you had the numbers in front of you, you could make some adjustments, and it's not as crazy or as drastic. And one of the things too is you don't want to lose weight too fast. You don't want to drop calories too fast, because you'll lose muscle weight. And if you lose muscle weight, your metabolism, you're just sabotaging your metabolism in the long run. So you want to think about the long game. I'm going to talk about the insulin trap. I talk about this a lot, but a lot of people, like, carbs are not the devil. I'm going to say this. People have a carbohydrate phobia, but the problem is carbs are not the devil. It's just that carbs are probably not the accurate statement. Is we're eating the wrong kinds, too many of them, and not in good balance with other macronutrients. So what happens if you look at this flow chart is, in a normal body, when you eat carbohydrates, you're going to make blood glucose. It's going to produce energy. Most of it should be stored in the liver and the muscles. But the problem is, if you're eating a lot of these processed foods, not just sugar, people always kind of like, well, I don't eat a lot of sugar, but then they're eating a lot of packaged foods, a lot of grab and go foods, a lot of breads that are really kind of not really poorly made. These things will break down in your system a lot like sugar, like pretzels. So an example I like to use is pretzels don't have sugar in them per se. Apples do. But if you have a football party, let's say, and you put a bowl of apples and a bowl of pretzels in front of you, which bowl do people keep eating and having to refill? What do you have to, which one is it? Nobody takes down a bowl of apples. Let's be honest here. How about, let's do another example. How about a bowl of oatmeal versus if you had some like Lucky Charm cereal or Frosted Flakes? I mean, who here has like done more than one bowl of oatmeal? Anybody? Raise your hand. Like you said, I really need another bowl of oatmeal. I'm still hungry, right? So oatmeal has some substance, but what about like a couple bowls of cereal? I know I could do 2 or 3 easy. All right. I've done it before, because it's high. It's a high glycemic, high sugar, and a poorly made carbohydrate that basically breaks down very, very quickly. So even if it doesn't show sugar in it, it can break down as fast, if not faster, than certain sugars. Like sugars in fruit are natural sugars, and apples take longer to break down than pretzels. So you can't just go by sugar. You have to look at the food. And if the food's a very processed package or an instant food too, like even an oatmeal, you see oatmeal that you can make it in a minute and it's got, maple sugar in it. People think that's healthy, but if something's made to cook in a minute, it's been altered so that it cooks quick. If it cooks quick, it's going to break down quick like sugar. So when that sugar hits your system, your blood sugar is going to elevate like a roller coaster. It's going to go straight up, and then your body's going to release a lot of insulin, because that's how it pulls it out of the bloodstream and puts it where it's supposed to go. And you're going to get the crash, and you get on this roller coaster. And the problem is a lot of people are on the roller coaster, they don't realize it, and that can lead to metabolic syndrome or insulin resistance, it's called, or syndrome X. I've heard it called different things. Well, that's a precursor to type 2 diabetes. This is a big problem, because I look at food journals and people are eating things throughout the day that are spiking their blood sugar, and this keeps your body's insulin levels chronically elevated. And when that happens, you cannot burn fat, and you actually are more prone to store fat, especially around the midsection and in the upper back. So those are the areas, if you're carrying fat in those areas, that is typically a sign that your insulin is probably a little bit elevated and your blood sugar is unstable. So we got to eat the right kind of carbohydrates. Number one is stuff that's going to be more whole, stuff that's going to take longer to cook. So like I mentioned, oatmeal. Oatmeal takes, I know when I cook my oatmeal, it takes me probably 10 to 15 minutes. It takes longer. Sometimes, like if I cook like a steel cut oats, that's even longer. Or like, let's say like a wild rice versus minute rice, things that take longer to cook are going to take longer to break down. When those carbohydrates empty into your bloodstream much slower, your insulin levels your blood sugar levels are going to climb so fast, and then your body's not going to have to release as much insulin. So it's more like a time release. Along with that, you're going to want to eat protein. Now, everyone always thinks about protein is a it's all important for muscle. Yes, that's part of the reason, but the big thing I like about protein is that it actually is the hardest macronutrient for your body. Your body has to work the hardest to break down protein as a macronutrient. And when it has to work hard like that, it slows down the emptying time of the entire meal. So protein slows down the exiting of that food and the breaking down of that meal, and that makes it go in at more of a time release versus like an adrenaline shot. And so what I recommend for women is 20 to 30 grams of protein at a meal, and for guys 30 to 40 grams, and then for snacks at least 10 to 20 grams at a snack for women and 20 to 30 for a guy. Because a lot of people say, well, I had an egg. Well, an egg's like 6 grams of protein. We just don't eat enough of that, and that's one macronutrient that tends to sit low, and the carbohydrates tend to sit high, when really we want to bring them back in a little bit more equal balance. Unless you're like most people, unless you're like doing landscaping for a living, or you're like a serious athlete, you don't need as many carbohydrates as a lot of people eat. And you also want to make sure that you're not eating things throughout the day that spike your blood sugar and put you into that fat storage room, into that insulin trap. A good example of this is a story I have about a client years ago. She was a redheaded client that really liked to get on my case. She kind of was fiery, and we had we always kind of had that relationship, like a brother-sister relationship. So we'd always kind of butt heads. And the thing is that she wasn't losing weight, even though she was working hard. And I said, finally, I got her to write, this is before fitness, but I got her to write down her food for a week straight. And I said, all right, write down everything you eat for a week straight in your notebook. And it was like every day, like clockwork. She would have a lot of good, healthy foods, but intermittently snuck in between those foods was, I remember it was a blueberry muffin from Great Harvest Bread, and it was like usually a caribou drink. So these sugary things were kind of hiding between all the good things. So my challenge to her was, I want you to take 2 weeks and not have any of these things, and let's see what happens. And this was a long time ago, so I've known this for a while. And you literally in 2 weeks, it was not just a little noticeable, it's a lot noticeable. You could see she was leaner. Her skin was tighter because she wasn't holding a lot of water weight in addition to that. And she looked noticeably leaner. It was crazy. And that was when I realized, and I started seeing this a lot, is these things kind of sneak in. We have a lot of good foods, but in between we're having, oh yeah, I had that chocolate there. Oh yeah, I had that little treat here and there. So keeping those things out as much as possible, because then we stay on the left side of this thing. When we have a healthy blood sugar, that the carbohydrates we do eat are going into the muscle and the liver, versus the excess. It's kind of like a sponge. We have enough to fill up the sponge with water, but if we're oversaturating the sponge starts to drip water off the sides. Well, that drippage off the sides of a sponge, when it's full and we're dumping more water into it, that's kind of what happens with the blood sugar when you're over consuming carbohydrates in the wrong types, is it kind of spills off, and your body has to put that sugar, that glucose somewhere, so it's going to store it around the midsection and the upper back area. So that's where you see, like, I've been eating for years like this and I haven't gained weight, and all of a sudden I'm starting to pack the weight on. I don't know what happened. Well, what happened was your body eventually shifted from the left to the right because you abused your blood sugar for so long. At some point, the needle's going to tip in the other direction. Now you're going to become insulin resistant. You can't, when you're younger, you might not notice it, but at some point it's going to tip over. And maybe it's because you had a change in a job, which changed your eating habits, or maybe you had kids. All these things will change your eating habits, and you don't even realize you're doing this. But this is a big rock that we really see a lot of, is quit having the sugar. And every once in a while, but if you start to have it on a consistent basis, if you're seeing it be, like if you're doing 1 day without, 1 day with, 1 day without, you're kind of putting the car in drive and then put it in reverse, put it in drive, put it in reverse. You're not really going back, but you're not going forward. You're just kind of sitting in neutral. So this is an important one. Eat protein at every meal. Eat more whole-based carbohydrates. Stay away from the processed package and the quick cooking stuff. And your body, your hormones, your insulin specifically, will be in a better environment for you to burn fat. And that's a big one that'll really help you guys out. So I spend a lot of time on that because it's important. I put number 3 in because this is the time of year when it gets less motivating to be active, but it's important because if we don't have like a Fitbit or something, if we're not conscious of this, a lot of times it's just simply our activity levels go down. I can't tell you how many people come in and they have they have changed jobs. They had like an active job, like a server, and then they got a desk job and they started to pack the weight on. So what I recommend is, because people don't have a lot of time, is to do the HIIT training, because you're going to burn more calories, not just during the workout, but after the workout. So like Linda who's on here tonight, we did a 30-minute HIIT workout, and it's probably really with the warm up, like 25 minutes of hard work. But the idea is that we're burning as many calories as would if she would have sat on a treadmill for an hour and walked at a moderate pace. And not only that, is when you do high intensity training, there's an afterburn effect. You can see that traditional cardio workout at the bottom, but you can see the afterburn effect and the metabolic rate in this chart is it's going to spike afterwards, and then it's going to come down, but it's not going to drop fast. It's going to drop slow. So you have this, what's called EPAC, exercise post-oxygen consumption, which is basically your afterburn. And you don't get that with traditional cardio. So doing some HIIT cardio, and I would recommend like 2 to 3 times a week, is probably the max. You don't want to do too much of it, because you can actually overstress your body, but you can burn not just calories during the workout, but after the workout more effectively. Also, this type of training is, we talked about hormones, insulin. So for women, human growth hormone is like testosterone for men. All right. It's an important hormone that diminishes with age. Now, I think part of it is age, but also I think part of it is we don't do any intense stuff as we get older. We start to slow down, but this will actually stimulate human growth hormone levels in your body, and catecholamines. These are fat burning hormones in your body that help your body release body fat to be used as energy. So that's important as well too. When you're doing strength workouts, and you guys, some of you guys on here know, and I know some people that are watching this probably haven't worked out with us, but there's a reason why we do circuits and we do big lifts. You know, why do you make us do deadlifts? Why do you make us do presses? Because big compound lifts, they take a lot more, and you guys know this, that have done this, take a lot more energy to do those lifts. And when you're moving from thing to thing, it keeps your heart rate elevated. So we're going for that same effect as we're trying to burn calories during the workout. A lot of times in the past, strength training was like, okay, strength training, cardio is cardio. Well, for most of our clients, and I would say the women especially, we do a lot of these metabolic workouts. We want to keep moving because you know, you don't have a lot of time. So if you're standing around, that's a lot of activity you could be doing. But plus, when we keep that heart rate elevated, we're getting the same thing as a HIIT workout. We're getting all those muscles worked. So we're working on the muscles, but we're also working on the metabolism as well. And that's why in my gym, you don't see like really machines. We have the squat machines, probably the only thing we have in there that's a true machine, but we use stuff with, you know, from a standing position, body weight, weights, because it burns more calories, it uses more energy, and it creates that afterburn effect. The other thing I want to talk about here is you want to pay attention to NEAT activity. So what's NEAT? It stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So this is something that probably, I would say 3 years ago, we really didn't pay much attention to, but I think it's really prevalent. And it's something that I set goals with clients. The first gal you saw at the first slide, Heidi, she didn't have time to do traditional cardio, but what we did work on was her NEAT activity. And she lost 30 pounds. And this was, she had one of our best transformations of the year this year by far. And it was because she kept track of her steps. So if you don't have a Fitbit or an Apple Watch, I would strongly recommend investing in one, because I think it's great. Because one of the things I like, the 2 reasons, is it keeps you conscious. When people know their steps, it makes them conscious, just like entering your food. When you start setting step goals, you start to pay attention, and you start to force yourself to be more active, especially because most Americans, we have desk jobs. We sit a lot. And I was the guy cracked me up in our field who talked about, it's Pavel. He's the guy, the kettlebell. He was kind of the king of kettlebells, but he had a great statement. He said, you're 30 minutes on the elliptical trainer, and if you spend 30 minutes on the elliptical trainer and then spend 23.5 hours laying around or sitting around, what do you think your body's going to reflect? It's not going to reflect that 30 minutes of exercise you did. Well, the rest of it you sat around. And the problem is, like a lot of Americans, is we probably get maybe 3,000, maybe 5,000 steps a day. And really, we want to be around 10,000 steps a day. And especially with winter coming, we have to be more conscious. How can we do that? You know, and things I've done when I've set step goals is, you know, walk the dog an extra lap around the block, do more housework, you know, especially if it's cold out and you don't want to go outside, you'd be surprised how much steps you get just walking around the housework. I know some of the days I have the most steps is when I have the most appointments in the studio. And it's kind of like the same as I'm walking around in the studio, just in that area for a long time. But that's be a lot like doing housework. So being mindful of your steps and the activity you're getting outside of work or outside of your workouts. Unless, like, I have one client who cleans houses for a living. She gets plenty of steps, but we're talking about the most people have a job that sits. So not to forget this is add this as part of your cardio. I kind of put it under cardio because it's just being active. All right. Being active makes a difference. It can make a significant difference in the calories that you burn. So it's not always about cutting calories. I believe it's about increasing activity and being more mindful of being active on a daily basis. And what you can do, there's different ways to do it. You know, some of my clients will do high intensity training, and then they might do like more of a steady state cardio just to get more steps in and just to mellow out for a day, because you can't do high intensity every single day or you're going to drive up your hormone cortisol, which is going to work against you. But if you're doing 2 to 3 days a hit, you could do, you know, on those other days, if you want to do a walk. Walking's underrated. It's not hard on the joints. It burns calories and it doesn't create a lot of stress in the body. So walking's good. The elliptical's good. Just being active in your yard is good. So trying to think of ways that you're going to get those 10,000 steps in. It doesn't mean you got to go out for a 3-hour walk or something like that. But I would recommend, if you don't have that, you get a Fitbit. The other thing I like to use it for is when you do your cardio workouts, whether it be a HIIT or a traditional cardio, is instead of setting a time goal, set a calorie goal. So these all have an exercise option on them. So when I go out and do whatever, I usually set a goal, might be 300 calories, 400 calories. But that makes me work hard. And this, just like FitnessPal, isn't going to be, you know, maybe exactly how many calories you burn in reality, but whatever it is, it's going to be consistent. A friend of mine who's a trainer who I've worked with when I did my last physique show said it's called good, bad information. It means it might not be most accurate, but it's going to be consistent. So if you use this as a tool and you're doing your cardio, start to set a calorie burn goal versus a time goal. And I think that I used to do time goals for clients, and I thought that was brilliant because I realized when I did that, 30 minutes of riding my bike on a paved trail is a lot different than 30 minutes of mountain biking. 30 minutes of elliptical is a lot different than 30 minutes of running. So sometimes if I had, you know, less time, I could pick my cardio because I knew I could get my calorie burn goal quicker. If I had more time, I might do something a little bit slower and more intensity because I knew I had time to get my calorie goal. So that's another thing I would recommend. And I would start maybe around 300 calories is a good place to start. If people go, where should I start? If you're trying to burn fat, I would say 300 calories is a good place to start because most time you're going to see a lot of things are going to be around 10 calories per minute, depending on how hard you're working. It might be a little more, it might be a little less, but should put you close to 30 minutes. But that's what I would start at, and then just work that up as you go forward. And then number 4 is I really believe that, you know, people kind of poo-poo this, and I'll have to admit, I've kind of not been promoting this enough, but I'm a big believer in smart supplementation. Now, that doesn't mean that we're gonna go get out the cuckoo berry roots and all these crazy things you see. I think it's really about just filling gaps. You need to get natural vitamins, natural minerals from food, but the reality is, I deal in reality here. Most Americans aren't doing that. You know, they're going to get some, but they need their gaps filled in. And there's supplements that can make a really big difference in how people's bodies function. And if your body's not functioning right, it's really not going to be very efficient at fat loss. And so adding some basic supplements of giving your body things it needs to work at its optimal level is going to help everything, not just your fat loss, but your immune system, your energy, your cognition. It affects all those things, but we're talking about fat loss here tonight. So I want to talk about, just plug it into that as well. So digestive health needs to be a high priority. If anything, with the COVID and everything, we've all learned a lot about how we want to strengthen our immune systems. Well, most of our immune system, the highest percentage of our immune system lives in the gut. So if our gut health is not right, our immune system is going to be compromised, and you're not making progress when your immune system is compromised. If you're always getting sick, and you always seem like you're fighting something, that's something I would really look at. Also, you can hold lots of undigested food, fecal matter, let's just say what it is, basically in your digestive tract, because a lot of people really don't drink enough water and they don't have enough fiber. And so stuff gets stuck in there. So we want to make sure that a lot of times when people feel there is some body fat there, but a lot of times it can be some bloating too. And if we're not absorbing good nutrition, it's really hard for our metabolism to work optimally. And if we're not getting the vitamins and minerals and the nutrients through the small intestinal wall into the bloodstream, it's going to be really hard for us to get the benefits, even if we are taking good supplements and eating good, healthy food. So we have to make that a high priority. The way I like to look at the digestive tract, it's kind of like the lint trap in your dryer. All right. When your dryer quits your dryer quits heating up, go and check the lint trap and it's dirty. Well, that's kind of like your digestive tract. Over time, we've had the end of summer, maybe we had some like parties, like we've had some birthday parties and celebrations, and it just becomes an accumulation of stuff. And all of a sudden we don't feel like we feel bloated. Maybe we have like, we don't feel like, we feel sluggish, tired all the time. And, the idea is, oh, let's just pump some more caffeine in, right? Let's just do something like that. Or let's just take something to get things moving along, versus let's deal with the digestive tract. Make it a high priority. So I'm a big believer in, most people probably need to supplement a little bit of fiber in, because most people don't come close. Women should be at about 20 to 25 grams, men about 30 to 35 grams. And then also water is a high priority. A lot of people just think about, well, fiber, but water is important, because if you up your fiber intake and you don't up your water, you're going to have a real problem. All right. You're going to get backed up. So water moves fiber through the system, and it helps lubricate the system, helps get things moving. And that's another thing that people come hugely short of, is water. Also, I'm a big believer in probiotics. Probiotics are great because good bacteria in your gut helps you break down food and assimilate that food into your bloodstream. And a lot of times we just don't have a lot of, maybe as high of numbers of good bacteria as we should. And so I'm just a big believer in supplementing it in. You can eat foods with it in there too, but I take the supplement additional foods that are fermented, like sauerkraut, miso soup, pickles are some real easy ones that I can think of. I'm trying to think what the other one is, kefir. So there's some foods like, even like Valley Foods, our co-op here has a fermented food section. But I'm a believer just taking a lot of people, it's just easier to add maybe a capsule of probiotics a day to the regimen, and it can make a huge difference. I know in our house, we all take them, and it's made a huge difference. I know when we start running out, my wife says something, my daughter takes them, because my daughter's had some digestive issues, and it seems to make a real big difference. And for the most part, I'm exposed to a lot of things, so I'm around a lot of people. My immune system has stayed pretty strong. And I don't know for sure, but I know like when I stopped having issues, because I used to get like sick every year, and now I very rarely get sick. And I really believe part of that is because I really started to realize back in like 2011, about 10 years ago, how important digestive health was. So that's the first priority. Whether it's to lose fat or gain muscle, we got to make sure the plumbing's working right, so we can absorb the things, get the full benefit of them, and we're not storing a bunch of junk in our system too, which just makes us feel, even if it's not body fat, it makes us feel sluggish, and we don't function at our best. Number two is that spark plugs. Vitamins and minerals can be spark plugs for the metabolism. So like B vitamins, vitamin D, which especially now in Minnesota here with the dark weather, with the short days, is a big one that helps support metabolism. Iron, magnesium, even I would say omega-3 fatty acids, which help you stabilize your blood sugar, along with magnesium. Chromium, which helps your body move glucose into the across from the bloodstream into the muscle cells. So these are all minerals and vitamins that can help your metabolism work better. We don't have to be an auto mechanic to know that a car needs gas to run, but if your spark plugs aren't running, your engine's not going to work anyway. So that's why I think the best analogy to use is making sure we have enough vitamins and minerals for our spark plugs to be fired on the right cylinders. And then number three is, there's a lot of sources of stress out there. There's air pollution, there's bad water, there's just emotional stress, there's stress from exercise. All these things can create inflammation in the body. Now, inflammation is not altogether bad by itself, but a lot of people typically have high inflammation in their body. And a lot of times what we do is we try to medicate it with ibuprofen, ice, when really we should start looking at the inside out. Like, one, we talked about cleaning up, get the sugar out of our diet. Another thing to get out of our diet is alcohol, is another inflammatory thing. Vegetable oils, I would cook with like coconut oil, olive oil, avocado oil. Those are better oils to use for cooking versus like your canola oils, your PAMs, all those type of things. Those things are pro-inflammatory, but when we have a lot of inflammation in our body from stress and from foods, basically it affects, go back to that insulin trap slide, it affects our body in the sense that our capillaries that feed our muscle cells are kind of like hoses. That's where the sugar should be going into our muscle cells if our insulin and our glucose are functioning correctly. But when we get inflamed, what happens is that it's kind of like a kink in the hose. That hose gets kinked up from inflammation, and now our body can't deliver that sugar into the muscle cell. So once again, now it has no choice but to put it into storage, which is not where we want it to go, into the warehouse, the fat storage warehouse. So inflammation, if we can reduce inflammation in our body, that's going to be pro-fat burning. And a lot of times, eating things like berries, eating certain vegetables, green tea is a good one. But, adding in some just, like vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin C. These are all vitamins that have anti-inflammatory effects. And then you also have some things called bioflavonoids, which can help with that too, which a lot of supplements will have in them, which can help aid that, keep that inflammation level down. And the best way to describe inflammation too is you've all seen it. If you've taken a bite out of an apple and left it out, it's kind of like rusting from the inside out. That apple turns brown if it sits out in the air. So we want to prevent that oxidation or that rusting. And that's why they're called antioxidants. So a lot of these things have antioxidants here that reduces that inflammation in the body, which internally is going to put you in a better, not just a healthier state, but it's also going to help you with your fat burning goals. So those are just some basic things. So I would say, what are the supplements should I take? I would say a good multivitamin, mineral. I would say, especially in Minnesota here, a vitamin D. Usually it's a vitamin D, C, and magnesium because they all work together as a team. When you have them together, you're going to get a better effect than taking them as a standalone. And then number 3 would be omega-3 fatty acids. And actually would say number 4 is a probiotic. And then fiber could be, depends on how much fiber you eat. And that's why Fitness Pal is great, because it can give you some feedback on if you're getting enough fiber or not. But some clients I know I work with, instead of beating their head on the wall, they'll just add a fiber supplement in just to kind of fill the gap in. So that would be an optional one depending on your certain case. All right, so game plan for put it together. So I say if you're really going to do this, you want to make these things non-negotiable. So one non-negotiable you want to do is you want to shop. You got to plan a time to shop, all right? So many times people have good intentions, but what happens is they get into their busy work week and they don't have time and they don't have energy at the end of the day. So it's much easier to run the Subway. It's much easier to go get takeout. When your best bet, if you want to make progress the most quickly and efficient way possible, is to shop. All right, go get the fresh meats, go get your good healthy vegetables. And when you shop, a couple things about shopping is people ask me about meat. Spend the extra money, get the meat that's been an animal that hasn't been taken care of. So no hormones, no antibiotics, preferably organic. If you're talking eggs or chicken, I would say free range. If you're talking fish, I would say wild caught. Things that have been corn fed, or you see like the chicken breasts sometimes at Costco and they look like somebody put steroids in them. Probably not something you want to be consuming. There's things in there that can have metabolic disruptors in them. The other question I get a lot is organic fruits and vegetables. Best answer I can give you on that is if it's got a peel. Peel kind of protects it. So like a banana or an orange, I don't really worry about getting organic, but like definitely with like berries, stuff where the vegetable or the fruit is actually exposed, I think it's worth it, because once again, we go back to that'd be a whole different thing, but pesticides and things that they use to spray those non-organic foods can get in there and disrupt hormones too. So I try to get as much of that. We're never going to get rid of all the toxins in our environment, but if we can start to get rid of some of them and take a big chunk out of them, we should start to notice a difference, because a lot of times that can be one of the things that's holding up our metabolism. So spend the extra money. It's what's going in your body, so it should be a high priority. Plan. All right. I know one thing. My wife and I always talk about when nights are we going to have home for dinner and what are we going to have. If I'm going to be at work, I know I have a plan for what I'm going to bring into work for dinner. I carry my crazy cooler around. I mean, anybody who's been in the studio at night can probably see me do that. But it's just something that's a non-negotiable for me. I know, like, if I don't have a good dinner and I wait till the end of work and I come home at 8 o'clock at night, I'm going to be starving. So when I have a planned dinner and I bring it into work, or if we have a planned meal as a family, things go much better. It's when we don't have a plan, and we all know this, that we typically not always make a good decision. And then have the food ready to go. So things like cook up, we have the grill, cook up some turkey burgers, cook up some chicken breasts, cook up some, like oatmeal. And some people, like I know Tracy does overnight oats, have stuff ready to go. So when you get home, it's minimal effort to prepare, especially if you have a hectic schedule like we do with kids and everything. when you come home and you have stuff ready to roll and it's pretty quick, it's much easier to make a good choice. So it goes back to that, make the good habits easy. So make this a high priority, because if you do that, if you do number one, chances are everything is going to fall in line much more behind it. Because when you have good choices available, it's just going to be much easier to follow the plan. All right. It's when you get into your work week and you're trying to play catch up, it usually doesn't go well. Number two is you got to block time for your exercise. Don't try to fit it in. It goes back to the powerless versus powerful talk. Put it into your calendar like it's an important, like it's one of your kids' conferences, like it's in a medical appointment, or it's one of your top clients. Make time for yourself. A lot of people just don't make time to take care of themselves, and eventually they start to break down. And they think, like I think one of the things I see a lot, especially with moms, they're always putting themselves last. And then I see what happens is they start to break down, and they're not happy. And it affects the people around them in the long term. So there's nothing wrong with taking time for yourself and taking care of yourself, because when you do that, you're going to be able to better take care of the people around you. I know that's a hard one for a lot of moms to really own, but it's so true. When you exercise, not only does it help your body, it helps your mind work better. So all the to-dos and all the crazy things like moms juggle every day, you're going to have a better time of focusing on those things just because you exercise, because there is a tie into that. Also, especially when we get into the winter, doing that is kind of like, it's like a natural Prozac. It's going to help keep your mood up. When you exercise, it lifts up your neurotransmitters in your brain, which helps you feel more motivated, which helps you feel more like at peace, well-being. And you probably all have experienced this after a workout, especially if you can do it in the morning, because it kind of sets the tone for the rest of your day. Not everybody can do that, but that's why I'm a big believer. If you can do your exercise in the morning, I think that's ideal, because you get all those benefits, and then you go into your day with all those positive brain chemicals flowing, and your energy is going to be up, because when you exercise, there's little energy factories called mitochondria in your body. You're creating more of those, which is going to create more energy. A lot of people think that, well, if I exercise, I'm going to be more tired. Actually, it's the opposite. When you do that, your body creates more of these mitochondria, these little energy factories, and you have more energy to do things, not just your workouts and your food, but also you feel you're going to be much more productive in your work and your stuff at home too. You're going to get more done around the house. And so if you look at it like that, like that's a catalyst to those things. That's going to make you more effective in the other areas of your life. And it's so true. Number three is pre-plan and enter your food. So I'm going to go over that in a sec here. I'm going to show you how I use FitnessPal. And then consistent daily action. So it's not about, like I said, it's not about trying to run a 5-minute mile. It's running your pace. So you're better off deciding, what can I realistically do in a day? Can I get, maybe it's not 10,000 steps, but I'm going to start at 6,000 steps. I'm going to take my lunch to work instead of go to the cafeteria, go out and get, Chipotle every day. Little consistent things over time are going to pay off in the long run. It's like compounding interest. You talk to financial planners, they talk about making little deposits over time. All that pays off big time. It's no different here with this. So what consistent daily actions can you do? A lot of times people, especially as we get after the first year, they get overzealous and they make these huge action plans. But I really think if there's like 3 things you can do every day, that's plenty. Get in 30 minutes of exercise, get my FitnessPal filled up, and then make sure I get X amount of steps. Those 3 things might be what you do in a day. It's much easier to stay focused on that than if you have 10 things out here and it's this big wide list of things. So keep that list short, and then be accountable. Find somebody to be accountable to. I know we have trainers here, which is great, but even sometimes a good workout better, setting layers of accountability. So not just being accountable to a trainer, but maybe you have a workout friend or somebody from work that has a similar goal as you, and maybe you guys meet to walk. That's another layer of accountability. The more accountability you can get, the better. And number 6, after the 6 is the 6-day rule, and you're going to pick your refeed. So I'm not going to call them cheat days anymore. I quit calling them that, because if people look at a cheat day as like they're going off their plan. I like to call them what we call them in the bodybuilding world, refeed days. Is when you like say like Thanksgiving Day, or say like you go out for your anniversary. You go out and you're typically going to eat more, or eat things that maybe you don't eat, or eat a little bit more. That's actually a healthy thing. The person at the beginning, Heidi, she did, I had to force her to do like refeed days, to actually have a higher calorie day, to actually take a break from her food once a week. Her and her husband would make a meal, or they'd go out somewhere. And that wasn't important, because going low calorie and trying to white knuckle it the whole time, eventually what happens, your body slows down thyroid and leptin, which are 2 hormones that help you burn fat. but having a refeed day once a week is really, really important, because if you do that high calories, that kind of it's almost like it kind of restarts the metabolism. Calories feed the metabolism. They're not always a bad thing. It's been kind of beaten into our heads that calories are bad and if we eat too many of them, but a lot of times people slow down just because they're not eating enough of them, and those hormonal changes happen. That's why people hit a plateau on a diet a lot of times. But when you throw in some refeed days, formerly known as cheat days, but I like refeed better because it's more realistic. You're refeeding your metabolism. But the rule I like to tell people to get to is a 6-day rule, meaning that your refeed days need to be at least 6 days apart. All right. You're not doing a refeed day every 3 days. Give yourself at least 6 days. So you might have an event coming up or a holiday party, and it might be 8 days out. So then you're going to go to 7 days, and then day 8 is your refeed day. Okay. You're not going to go to do your refeed day and then 2 days later you're going to do your event. All right. So I always say, give yourself get to the point where you can go at least 6 days in a row of staying on your plan, not eating any junk, and then have that refeed day so you can kind of pick and choose. But you might have to make that go out a little longer depending on when these events come up, because then when you go to your event, it's not a stressor, it's part of my plan. I'm actually going to eat more calories today because I'm refeeding my metabolism. So it's just that perspective, that shift, that's important to think about. I'm going to go through a couple more slides and then just talk about. So I'm going old school here. I'm going back to my 24-day challenge, the IBQ 24 challenge, because I thought about this is where we've gotten a lot of results with. This is Betsy, and some of you, maybe you guys know, I know Tracy knows Betsy. But she started out with our 24-day challenge, our nutrition thing, and this is what she did in 12 weeks. That's pretty amazing. 21 inches, 8% body fat. I mean, that's a pretty amazing transformation. I just kind of picked some of my old and some of my new transformations. This is a lady I worked with last year. She actually was a fitness instructor at the Y and was referred in by one of our other clients. And the great thing about her is that she's a therapist by trade. So she actually, her full-time job is she's a therapist. So she understands process. So she understood the process of making changes. And I worked with her and she lost 30 pounds in just 5 months, but huge. And she was already exercising. So that's why, like I always say, she was exercising a bunch. She was getting tons of steps in, but the part that was really off was her food. I mean, too much socializing, too many often. And what we did is we found a way, just like we just talked about, is she lives on Crystal Lake, that she could go out, have a cocktail. She likes ethnic food like I do, make a special meal once a week, and then she get back on her plan. So she did the 6-day rule to a T, and this is where she was. And she actually works in the building adjacent to us, and I saw her there today, and she's kept the weight off. So it's awesome to see. This is Tiffany. She started with our group, but she did her 24-day challenge. You can see the difference in her, just the belly fat that went down. And this is all the stuff we just talked about being applied with what we call, and I'll talk about what our 24-day challenge is if people don't know what that is. And then what is the 24-day challenge? So 24-day challenge is a system. It's not a quick fix diet. It's not any of those things. But what we do is we start out with a 10-day cleanse. We reset the digestive tract. We clean up the links. So I don't even like to call it a cleanse because people think you're going to be camping out in the toilet. And that's not the case. It's actually pretty easy to follow. There's not a lot of rules. There's a few rules that we talk about if you want to get the best results. But it's really simple because a lot of times people have done a cleanse and they have to go buy all these special vegetables and roots and herbs and all these things. And it's just a lot of work. This is pretty simple. It's 10 days. And what I like about the first 10 days, it's not just about resetting your digestive system. It's about 10 days in a row of discipline. You're setting a culture of discipline. We talked about at the beginning, discipline versus feeling. So I like the 10 days because the 10 days of consecutive days of following something starts to build momentum. You get to a win. Hey, I just did that for 10 days and I got through the first phase. That's the first phase. And then in phase 2, the last 14 days, we bring in some USP grade supplementation. So we bring in some of those vitamins, minerals, vitamin D, all those things. The reason being is the first 10 days we're cleaning up the digestive tract so we can absorb those things. So we actually get off vitamins and those things during day 1 through 10. We're just going to assume your digestive tract needs some cleaning up. All right. I like to do this every now and then because it's like an oil change. I know, like at the end of summer, we always have a lot of cabin trips, a lot of up north things. And we all know if you have a cabin, you know that the cabin kind of equals not the healthiest food. And then after the holidays is another big time. But this is something I think I can always tell when I'm off. And this will help one, not even just clean that up, it helps level off your blood sugar. But then phase two, after we've cleaned up the digestive tract, we bring in some basic supplementation. They've added some really good guides. So it's good to follow up to what we talked about here is like a little mini Bible for this thing and a great tracking book where you actually score things like your sleep, your stress. And it's great because somebody's going to coach you through this. It's not just for you to look at, but for somebody else to review. And then we do code for this thing. It's like, yeah, it's 24 days, but anybody who's not already that working with me here, if you want me to be your coach for the end of the year, we are going to keep you a coach and accountable through the end of the year, all the way through this year, because I want to see people finish this thing strong. And you can go on my website, and it is a proven tracker. Because I thought about this: is what am I going to do? And I'm bringing back this because it's an old school program we've done, but it's very effective. And I think about like all the people that started out this way. This didn't get them to their goal. Typically, you're going to see 5 to 10 pounds, 5 to 10 inches, and about 2 to 3% body fat after 24 days. But it's the catalyst that starts the process down the road. And that's why I'm bringing it back, because it has been so successful in the past. I know Linda, who's on here, that's how she started out with us. And we used to do this with all of our training packages. And I'm thinking about bringing this back because like it works better than anything we've ever done. Number 6 is I put together a rapid fat loss guide. This is another thing I'm bringing out of the archives, some of my greatest hits, or it's like an old CD or something, but it's a rapid fat loss guide I made that has HIIT workouts in it. It has follow-up stuff to what we talked about tonight, but it's my greatest hits of fat loss. So I'd throw that in there. And then the hot for the holidays meal plan. I had a dietitian I know come up with a meal plan. So I talked about enjoying the holidays, but staying on track. So he actually wrote this for me. It's a hot for the holidays meal plan. And it's basically Christmas holiday type foods that are then some healthy recipes. And he lays it all out. If you've ever done our little black dress, I don't think anybody here has, but we had a program for that was written by a dietitian. So the dietitian isn't just putting bland, they're putting good recipes, things people are going to actually enjoy. So you can actually enjoy the holidays. And you don't even have to tell all your relatives. They probably won't even know the difference, because I know some of these recipes, it's like really that's healthy. So that's another thing we'll throw in with this too, because this is like a system. And then what I would do is like, I would do a phone call, a check-in phone call with everybody once a week. And we would check in on your Fitness Pal or whatever you're using to track. I have one client I just met with last night who doesn't like to use apps. So he's actually using the guide on here. We just made it simple, but we kind of meet you where you're at. But we do have to have a way to track. So we do this 24-day challenge. It's a one-time thing for $249, but this is it's kind of like a nutrition boot camp is what I'd say. We're going to be on you about your nutrition. We're going to say, hey, we want you to take your nutrition up. Yeah, you're doing pretty good, but if you want to do better and you want to move things a little bit faster and you want to say, get a fat loss or weight loss goal by the end of the year. And if you're in the Twin Cities, I know some people I know that are probably not on here. I know one from Colorado. I can't do that. But if you're here, you come to our studio, you get measured. We set a body comp goal at the end of the year, 3% body fat by the end of the year, where a lot of people are going 3% in the other direction. That's a big win. That's a pretty significant win, but it's very doable with this system. So it's a great system to use. So it's something, if you want to do this, you can reach out to us on the chat here, or you can talk to your trainer, or most of you guys all have access to me on Facebook or email. And I'd love to coach you through this because it is awesome, and like everything, if we do everything if you do everything that we tell you to do and you don't get good results, we give you your money back. Everything we do is money back guarantee. Now, what I want to do is I want to leave you with one last thing, and then I'll take any questions, is I want to shift over. And if you want to do this, just like I said, reach out. You don't have to answer me now, but I think it's a great way. I'm trying to get a group of people to do this because I've done this in the past. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this again because I know it worked in the past. So I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. Any specific probiotic? Well, I'm going to say Advocare, but I would also say we also have a great one from another company called Zervita to Michelle. So those are two that I recommend for probiotics. I know I've had people use other probiotics, and those probiotics, they feel like these work better. Or Metagenics, which a lot of chiropractors use, is another good probiotic that I know of. So just to answer Michelle's question. So I'm going to shift my screen here real quick. I'm going to shift to Fitness Pal for you guys. So hold on, I gotta pull up my Fitness Pal. I want to just show you guys one thing that is very effective, because I want to leave you with some good stuff here tonight. So a lot of people use the MyFitnessPal. And let's see, where is it? There it is. All right. Okay, so you can see my fitness pal. This is mine. All right. Now I like to do this on a computer, and I'm going to show you why. And I've showed multiple people this. If you really want to get serious about your nutrition, here's what I recommend when you go to your MyFitnessPal. You go in, and if you've been using it, it's been tracking foods that you normally eat. So one thing also I would say is you want to be boring probably for most of your meals today. Have one or two, like have staples. You're going to eat a lot of the same things, but that's the easiest way to manage this thing. You know, maybe 3 things tops for options, but you're going to see me. I'm going to put my whole day together tomorrow in a matter of a couple minutes. So what I like to do is, okay, today is the 28th. So we got to go to the 29th. So you can see my days in there. So I'm going to go to tomorrow, and I would recommend this because one, you're going to make you think about what you need to eat. All right, tomorrow to get to your numbers. So you can see FitnessPal has laid out some macronutrients down below for me. You can see my calories, my carbs, my fats, my protein. Now you don't need to hit these right on, but you want to get close. And this is why it's important to track. And if you need help setting up macros, we can definitely do that for you. But so I'm going to go to my breakfast, and here's the great thing is it remembers, and I'm kind of weird, so I'm just going to preface it with that, is I eat oatmeal, I eat egg whites, I do an energy, I do a Zervita nutrition drink, and I usually do a fruit. It's usually apples or blueberries. I think I'm out of blueberries, so I'm gonna do apples tomorrow. There's breakfast, all right? And now lunch. Now here's kind of interesting. Tomorrow at lunch is I'm going out to the Lakeville Brewery, and they have a Thai salad with chicken. So I'm gonna just talk about eating out. And I'm just going to find something, and I'm guessing the one I'm always going to overestimate eating out, and I'm also going to do 1.25 servings. So if you eat out and use something from MyFitnessPal, overestimate. All right, I'm going to overestimate what's in there, especially if I'm trying to lose body fat. That's going to be really important because I'd rather be a little bit under and be off that way than the other way. So now I've got that in there. My snacks are pretty consistent. I usually do an Advocare shake with the banana, energy, and then I usually do a couple protein bars. So you can see the nice thing is this isn't a lot of work because I've been entering foods in here, and FitnessPal says, okay, here's what Eric has for lunch, here's what he has for snacks, here's what he has for dinner, and it remembers that. So now I have to just go click this, and this is how the computer works much better. All right, so now I've got that in there, and I'm sitting pretty good, and then I get into my dinner, and my dinners are pretty consistent too. I know tomorrow night I am probably just going to have some ground beef, some grass-fed beef patties and vegetables. I know I'm pretty boring, but the nice thing is now I've got tomorrow in there, and where do I sit? All right, I'm pretty close. All right, I'm pretty close to where I want to be. I'm a little over on my fat, I'm a little under on my protein, and a little bit over my carbs, but I'm pretty close. So if I really want to be anal, and this just depends how anal you are, I could actually say, I could actually try to do a different thing because beef's pretty fatty. I could actually say, okay, what if I did turkey burgers tomorrow? Or what if I did chicken tomorrow? I think we have some chicken in there. What if I did chicken breast for my dinner? So I'm just showing you guys this because now you can see, because a lot of times what happens with FitnessPal is people do a good job of logging, but then at the end of the day, they have like 50 calories left for their dinner, and that's just not feasible versus if you just start to be mindful. So what if I did, let's see, 2.5. Chicken's a little bit leaner, so I switch that out. And this works good for restaurants too, because if you look at a restaurant, you might be looking at 2 different things. You can see where it shakes out. So now that's pretty good. I just switched out. I said, what if I have chicken versus beef tomorrow night? And that if I really want to be anal, now it puts me right on. But you can see how I can plan that out ahead of time versus, okay, if I just log tomorrow and I just play catch up all day, and maybe I get to my dinner and all of a sudden I'm way over on stuff, a lot of things already. So it's a proactive way to use this app, and it really works well. This is something I really encourage clients to do because one, now you know you're going to be consistent with your numbers, that you're hitting the numbers that you're supposed to. 2, you're going to be thinking about your day tomorrow. Like, where am I going to be? What can I eat? Like, I know I'm going to meet some friends at Lakeville Brewery, so I'm going to put that in there. And then I can see how it all shakes out. So I'm consistent throughout the day, and you can see it tracks fiber. I'm more than enough fiber. Usually I am. And you can even track water if you want, but I like this piece a lot. This is how I think this app functions best. And if nothing else you take home here for tonight is, okay, I'm gonna set up some targets, and I'm gonna start doing this on FitnessPal, and I'm gonna try to hit these things on a consistent basis, 5 to 6 days a week. I'm gonna be close to these numbers, and you should start to see either it's gonna move or it's not. But if it's not moving at 2,400 calories for me, I know I'm consistently hitting that. So I know that I can maybe move it down to 2,200 calories and increase my exercise a little bit because I have consistent numbers to work off of. So I hope that makes sense. So I'm a little bit of a nerd like that, but I think if you really want to see things move quicker, that's what has to happen. That's just one of those things. And I know the clients that do this typically get really good results. All right. Unless there's something really off with their hormones or anything. Any questions at this point?
Eric, while you still have that screen up, even a faster way, like if you eat the same breakfast every day, you can go under quick tools. And instead of add foods, if you go under quick tools, and it'll allow you to like copy yesterday, and you can copy your breakfast from yesterday right in there.
Where is quick
right in?
tools?
It's right next to add food. So if you go by, like you're going to add more food to your breakfast, right there, just click on that, and it just says copy from date. Well, you can also remember that meal. That's another thing. You could name it and remember it, but if you click one
I've never used that.
line
That's
below,
quick too.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I do it a lot. And then maybe if I change one thing in my breakfast, I'll take that out and swap it in. But when I do log my food, that's a really fast way to do it ahead of time.
Well, either way, it's like less than 5 minutes. And it's like, I tell people, like, if you're serious about nutrition, you can take 5 minutes to do this every night, and you will have your plan set for tomorrow, and you just have to walk it out. You know what you need to eat. Then it comes back to our very first thing at the beginning. It comes back to your why. Will you walk it out? And why will you walk it out? So now you at least have a game plan every day going forward. Now, will you miss a day here and there? Yes. But like I said, if you're consistently hitting things 5 to 6 days, you should start to get some feedback. For me, if I'm at 2,400 calories, I should start to feel like my waist tighten up. I should start to feel my clothes fit differently over time. It's not going to happen overnight, but I should start to feel things move in the right direction. If they're not, then I know that 2,400 calories is consistent. So I know I can drop that a little bit. I can just tweak the amounts a little bit and go down a little bit and start hitting that, and then things start moving again. And we've done that before with a lot of other clients. But I think a lot of people use FitnessPal on their phone, which it's good, and they log, which is good. But I think if you really want to get the most out of FitnessPal, this is the way to use it, and just be proactive with it. So okay, here's what I'm going to end up at tomorrow. I know I'm going out. You can be more specific with it, and you can be more on target with what you're supposed to be hitting. So hope that makes sense. Was this helpful? All right, no questions. It must have been awesome because I answered all the questions. So
it was good. Thank you, Eric.
Yes. Well, I would say this: if you want to do this 24-day challenge, I'm going to be raising up a group. I know I'm recording this, and I'm going to be sending it out too. So there's some other people that could be on tonight, and we'll try to get a group. I'd like to get a group of like 4 to 5 people, just a small group to coach to the end of the year, really push this piece and take it to the next level. So I thank you guys for being on today, and I hope this was worth your time. And always reach out if you have any questions. All right.
Thanks, Eric.
Good night, Karen. Good night, Tracy.
Bye, Tracy.
Thank you. See you, ladies.